Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Her ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, to review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where many other Star Trek-based YouTube shows which have copied us have gone before. Good evening. Good evening.
Hang on.
Good evening.
The aspersions.
Good afternoon. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers. Welcome to another live episode of Trekking Up North. I am your host, Captain Goodwill, and joining me, as ever, is the delectable Geesian from the planet Honk, who has had one too many, I suspect. It's Science Officer Synoiz!
I told you, I can hear you. I'm being echoed on your thing. Maybe, I don't know.
Are you echoing?
I am. I can hear myself back, and it's a horrible, horrible situation. But
can you Can you hear it now?
Hear me now.
Can you hear it now?
Nope. I'm gone now. That's cool.
I've moved away from the microphone, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. No, that was told to you in pure confidence, Mr. Goodwill, that I have had a fair amount of alcohol today, so I'm nicely tiddled, I think, for this one. But no, I'm doing well. It's been a good week. It's been, after a slow, depressive period, it's nice to get back into the swing of things and be like, oh, I'm back to normal. Like I'm doing all the stuff I usually do. So it's been quite good having a very intense week of getting a lot of stuff organized and done. We've got everything sorted for the next Nerdy Up North quiz, which is all thanks to Paul from Nerdy Up North, he's in Manchester for the Love of Horror this weekend, I think. I don't know if he's there today, but he's going to be there tomorrow with Sammy and Lee and everyone. But it's he
Dirty
managed to do that in
Manchester.
record time. Fucking Manchester.
Is he wearing a parka and is he just walking around going like...
Is he very indecisive? He's like, I said maybe. Anyway.
And after all,
that's it.
It's my pop vinyl wall.
Is that my name is Paul.
We're not here to sing.
That's not it. No. What we need to do is we need to sing. We were discussing this before we started about like are we going to do a rendition of "Faith of the Heart" this week? I think we need to do it as Oasis. We need to do it sort of. Like...
Allow me, because he famously did this, and it's been a long road. Getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally near. And I will see my dreams come alive at last. I will touch the sky, and they're not gonna hold me down no more.
They're not gonna change my mind. 'Cause I've got faith
of the heart. I'm going where my heart will take me. I've got faith to believe I can do anything. I've got strength.
Vinyl. It's in a massive collection. My name is Paul. I've got pop vinyl. Pop vinyl. Yeah, that's it. That's the song. Oh, hi, Paul. Hope you're having a lovely day, and I hope we've improved it for you by just trolling you.
It's been a long road getting from being a geek.
Getting out the fucking Lego store. That's the grim reality of this situation. But
yeah.
Hi, Paul. I hope you're doing well, but
Goodwill is out of uniform. I'm not out of uniform because this is the only thing I've got enterprise-wise, because my jacket is currently in Florida, and I think hopefully it's the only thing not wet in Florida. because there's been a
Moist.
slight delay. There was a delay in it getting from China, and yeah, my uniform is on its way. That's all I know. But I am out of. Christopher Reed has been a member of Nerdy Up North for 17 months. Isn't that a prison sentence?
That's it. It's like
Yeah.
came for the nerds, stayed for the
Stayed for the
faith.
faith. We are here this week to review. By the way, it's a purple teeny. We are here this week to review a Star Trek Enterprise episode. For those new to Trekkin Up North, my love of Star Trek Enterprise runs deep, runs passionately, and my heart will always have faith. Some might say it will go on, but no, Celine. My heart will always have faith. I love Enterprise incredibly, incredibly deeply. It is something very personal to me. It's not one of my favourite Star Trek series, but it is something that resonates with me a lot, and it's very personal to me. So I am very excited that the double wheel of episodes dropped on this for the final time this year. Science Officer Synoiz.
Is it really? Are we not doing
It is.
it? Oh.
It is, because there was a very nice segue, because for the rest of this year... Oh, what is this? That is right. For the rest of 2024, Trekkin Up North will be reviewing the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5. A season 5 seasons in the making, apparently. This
Is the poster real? Is the poster real
This
for that?
poster is real and was done by
I love
very,
it.
very talented artist, Matt Ferguson, who designed all the posters for Lower Decks Season 5. He also did Transformers 1, and he's done a load of other movies as well. He's a fantastic artist. This is actually
It is so
homage.
tacky, and I love it. I absolutely love it. This is the 80s,
Well,
you will die from shock kind of poster that we love.
Funny that you say this, because this is actually a homage to the 1989 poster for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Oh.
So the poster for Star Trek V was, why are they putting seatbelts in cinemas, in theatres this summer?
Okay.
And it was actually a cinema seat with a seatbelt. So Matt's actually taken that, put the Cerritos in right there, and then done a sofa with seatbelts. So it's absolutely, I think that is one of my most favourite posters of all times. But starting next week, we will be reviewing Lower Decks Season 5, the final season. Very sad. But that will take us all the way up to the week before Christmas. And then Trekkin Up North will go into hibernation for a little while. The Adequate will go into dry dock, and when it returns, there will be some shall say a little bit of a refit going on, because I'm going to completely overhaul the way that Trekkin Up North looks. So yes,
am I gonna? Yeah, basically, he says he's gonna frame me correctly rather than me being.
No, that's entirely down to you. Fix your shit.
It's me just like having my laptop I'm a centimeter away from my face, and I'm just like, am I framed correctly, Goodwill? And you're just like, fuck off.
You've become the quintessential. You've become the 40-year-old that can't frame properly on Zoom meetings.
How do I check my email? Oh no, seriously. I had to go around. I'm not regretting dissing on my mum here, but my mum messaged me saying, okay, so I've got a file on my computer and I need to get it onto my phone. How do I do that? And I had to go have you tried emailing it to yourself as an attachment? And they're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, an email. And she's like, oh, I know what an email is. And I'm like, an attachment. Oh, I know what an attachment is. And I'm like, then what's the problem?
Email attachment.
Yeah, it's like that. Is it the to yourself bit? Yes, I had to literally go over to her house, turn on their computer, it's a computer made for Windows 7 that is currently running Windows 11. And I've never felt so sorry for a piece of machinery in my entire life. 20 minutes to start the computer up, okay? 20 minutes for it to actually get to a desktop where you could click on stuff and it actually does things. And then it was literally open her email, type her own email address in, attach the file, and press send. And then she's like, oh, it's appeared on my phone. And I'm like, yeah, that's it.
How can your mother's PC get Windows 11 and yet my gaming laptop does not qualify because it has an i7?
Really?
Yeah, so It's 16 gigs RAM, 1 terabyte hard drive, solid state drive, separate
Hmm.
partition, and they're like, you can't have this because you've got an i7 processor. You should have an i5. And I'm like, excuse me for wanting a better processor. And it's like,
I
no,
have
you've
no idea. I don't even know how they did it. I know for a fact it will have just popped up and they went, okay, cool, let's
yeah,
do that. And
it
you're
was a
like,
forced
this,
installation.
oh, was it? Is this
Yeah,
because it's like this computer cannot handle like
well,
this at
they
all?
said
And I'm trying to work out how to downgrade them to like Windows 98, maybe. I don't know. Like I think
they
even Windows XP would be a push for this machine, but
well, as long as it's not Vista. But they said to me that like, because it was a thing like, what can I do to make my machine take Windows 11? And they were like, purchase a new machine, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's what? So I have till
I,
October
I'm just
next
gonna
year.
I'm gonna solve it the gay way and suggest what is it? Lube and poppers. That's if you wanted to fit.
I will retire my very, very loyal, hardworking laptop after what will be 8 years of service next year. I will give it a Viking funeral. I will put it on a boat in the River Tees, surrounded by
Push it
flowers,
out.
and I'll just get an archer and just go twang and just like set it on fire. And I'll have some fat Scottish person playing Amazing Grace on the bagpipes, and Paul will cry in a veil. But no, we
I
so
want to see that. I want to see Paul in full sort of Morticia kind of yeah
mm,
vibes.
new kink discovered. But yes, next week we will be starting our weekly review of Lower Decks season 5. However,
Mm,
tonight we are here to discuss the Star Trek Enterprise episode. Well, no, Enterprise episode because it was season 1,
mm,
Breaking the Ice. Episode 8 in the run list for Enterprise in season 1. This is a very good episode. There's not a lot of action in it, but it's one of those episodes that is resolved through again like what we mentioned with the Next Generation. It's resolved through dialogue, it's resolved through words,
mm.
there's not a lot of actions, and we see the moral of the story is you need to learn when to ask for help, you need to swallow your pride and learn when to ask for help. So the very brief synopsis for this is, with a Vulcan ship on their tail, Enterprise
Mm.
decides to investigate a comet. Not the failed retail chain in the UK, an actual comet in space. Do you remember
I don't
Comet?
know. I'd be up for that as an episode.
I
They
used
check,
to love Comet.
and then for their next trick they try and do the pick and mix at Woolworths or something.
Hello
It's
to
just
everybody. Hello to everybody in the chat. We've got Chris Garris, who I've been able to poach from the Search for Trek. We've got the lovely
you
Sarah
haven't
P.
even started yet, and you poached people.
We have started. I'll have you know. I will have you know.
You've,
I am. I am doing
I
on
know.
this star date.
You've been doing your little thing, your little on this star date thing, and there's a Patreon and all that and stuff, and
Okay,
it's all lovely for
guys.
you.
No, guys. I made a boo boo this week.
Oh
I
no.
made a boo boo this week, and I am mortified. So October the 16th was Todd Stashwick's birthday, right?
Mm.
Now everyone who knows me knows, right? Very much like Anson Mount, I have a thing for Todd Stashwick because
Oh my.
I believe his eyes can stare into your soul, right? So I said on my video, "Happy birthday, Todd Stashwick, with your crystal clear blue eyes that can stare into my soul." And Todd Stashwick replied, and he
Oh
went,
God.
"You're too kind. By the way, my eyes are green."
My God, you just please tell me you replied with, well, what have I been wanking to all these years?
I just replied by saying, "I'm colourblind."
You're digging the hole, just digging it worse. What have you done?
I was too busy nursing a semi from the comment because it came up on my phone. It was like, Todd Stashwick has commented on your video. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
I,
And then
I, I do
realized,
think
go on.
I think as men that's a valid excuse. If you just replied with can't reply now, nursing a semi, I think most guys would just get it. They would just be like, yeah, cool, understood.
He was, to be fair, he was absolutely he was wonderful about it. But I had about 7 hours of just being mortified and saying to my partner, Todd Stashwood commented on the video, and she's like, "You got his eye color wrong, you dickhead," and I'm like, "I know."
I love it. That's so good, man.
But nice segue, because
Oh.
Todd Stashwick was in Star Trek Enterprise and he played a Vulcan.
Mm.
Anyway, Breaking the Ice from season one. A terrific episode. Me and you both watched it today, I believe,
Mm.
together. Well, not together, but like at the same, round about the same time. I had to watch it over the space of 3 hours. Because I had a lovely gentleman coming to fix my boiler. So I was like, I will watch 20 minutes here and then a minute here and then
Yeah.
25 minutes, because I had the audacity to also work. But it is, like I said, I love Enterprise so much. And then I watch
Mm.
episodes like this and then I realize why I love Enterprise so much, because it doesn't
Mm.
need a lot of action and the characters sort of have a lot of chance to breathe. Well, most of them do anyway, but they have a lot of chance to breathe and develop, especially in the early episodes of season one. And this one, like I said, it's all about learning when to ask for help and trying to swallow your pride. That is the moral of the story
Mm.
that we see here. And it's
It's
also,
an episode about communication. It's the
yes,
episode about when you're dealing with multiple cultures, you can't assume. Like the worst thing you can do is assume what someone's intentions are, you know? And
yeah.
I think that's the moral I took away from it.
Yeah, so we see the episode opens in the mess hall where Trip and Phlox are looking at drawings that Trip's is his nephew's class has drawn, or niece's class
It's
has
really
drawn.
confusing because it's basically he says, "Hey, these pictures are from my nephew's like school class," but then later on it says actually the drawings came from a school class in like Dublin or like
Yeah, but I
County
mean,
Kerry, I think in Ireland, and he's just going, he can't be from Ireland, like
no,
Trip kind
but
of.
to be
So
fair, they might have moved
yeah,
because they are
it's a
from
bit
Florida.
and as we see, what happens to Florida.
No,
Thank you,
no.
Enterprise, for hopefully predicting the future. But just
But yeah,
average age of America is now 20.
I had a lot of issues like with this first because I was like, they're that far away from Earth. How did they receive paper drawings? And then I realized they must have a printer. Uh,
I I will say though, before we get too far into the episode, I'm going to admit, okay, I've watched this episode twice this week because I basically watched it when I had like 5 minutes spare when I was still trying to organize my week before. You know, when you're in that period where you don't want to cancel anything, you don't want to fob anything off, but you're like, I can't actually fit what I'm trying to fit in.
yeah,
And also, once again, lube and poppers. But it's the fact of like I watched the episode once and then I was like, this is too good not to make notes about. So I watched it again today on the train and made all my notes and stuff. And I was just like, this is absolutely fantastic in terms of an episode. And while we disagree, because obviously there are people who think that Enterprise gets better as it goes on, and that seasons 3 and 4 were the best season, where I'm very much like season 1 is the pinnacle of Enterprise. Season 1 is just perfection and very enjoyable. And this is a great example of season 1 Enterprise, where you're just going, this is what distinguishes it from Next Gen, DS9, Voyager. This is
yeah,
the joy of it, of just going, wow, like like this idea, because we had like Picard Day in Next Generation and stuff, where the kids were like doing drawings and stuff of Picard or doing stuff. But the wonderful thing about this is just how close they are to Earth. Like they still haven't gone too far out into space, kind of thing. And they've got all these drawings and they've got all this like communication. They still got these close ties to Earth and having to kind of explain themselves. And there's just something wonderful about it. There's something so homely about it. And the fact
yeah,
that we see how limited their technology is in this episode. Like we have a bit later on where they have a grappler, and it's like, yeah, that is kind of crap compared to what other like races and stuff has. And this is what's endearing about like it's how Bashir in DS9 talks about frontier medicine and stuff. This is literally like frontier Trek. Like this is them getting by with what they've got before they've got shields,
it's
before they've got
stripped
photon
back.
torpedoes.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't even have like a grappling beam. Like like is it a grappling beam or is it
tractor beam.
no Tractor beam, yeah. They don't even have a tractor beam yet, and that's like a staple throughout all of bloody Trek.
Yeah.
And they've just got these shitty grapplers and stuff, and that's what I enjoy about it. I enjoy this, and this is just a perfect episode where it fleshes out Vulcans, it fleshes out the characters. Everyone has something to do. We don't have a Neelix character where we're just going, what do we do with this person kind of thing? We go, hey, here's Hoshi. She's doing Hoshi stuff. Hey, here's Phlox. They're doing Phlox stuff. Here's Merryweather. Is it Merryweather or Mayweather?
Travis Mayweather.
Yeah, I wrote down Merryweather and I knew it wasn't right, but he doesn't get named in this. But yeah, but Mayweather in this episode has loads of stuff to do. Even Reed has stuff to do, right? Which is admittedly looking like a petulant dickhead, but it's a. The, I'm sorry, man. No, no, we're not going to insult him that way, but it's the fact of like the first scene he's in where they're talking about going down to the planet and they're going down to the comet and whatnot. He just looks so petulant, and there's something about his bottom lip being so thin. I was just like. Perfect security officer, if we're perfectly honest. But yeah, anyway,
It
that's my
is.
preamble to the episode.
Yeah, it is. It is a great episode that gives you a lot of exposition into how we've had at this point. We've had 35 years of Star Trek where we've had tractor beams, photon torpedoes, replicators,
Mm,
transporters, and it's like, yeah, but this is 100 years before the original series. They don't have all this
mm,
technology, and this is a great episode where they explain just how low tech they actually are. Like
mm.
the scene where they are speaking with the school kids, they're sending a message to the school kids about, what's it like, do germs live in space? How do
Yeah.
we recycle stuff? And I mean, we'll get to that, but it's when they're explaining it, it's great exposition where they're saying, yeah, we resequence everything and we get germs, and it's that cramped that a lot of people share quarters and it's difficult to understand languages, so it's my job to do this. And it's like, well, yeah,
Mm,
because they wouldn't have all the technology that we were so used to 100 and 200 years in the future of Star Trek. And it's excellent because it still feels like Star Trek, but it doesn't have like 50% of what we expect in it.
yeah.
And season one Enterprise did a brilliant job of that. So did season two. Season three,
Mm,
controversially, I'm not a fan of season three of Enterprise. I think it just went way too deep with the season arc. But season four, they sort of steered the ship a little bit.
mm,
And it was getting, like I said, it was getting to the Romulan War. With this episode, though, it's about communication, it's about trust, and it's about learning when to swallow your pride. So
mm.
when they find this, when we see that they've received these images from the kids and they've printed it off on paper, and they're going on, when we see that the Enterprise has arrived at a comet, which is like
Well,
the,
we get it where we have the wonderful scene with where they've got the pictures of the kids and stuff, and we just have like T'Pol, because this episode is mainly a Trip and T'Pol episode. Like they're probably the characters it focuses on, but we get it where like Phlox and Trip are trying to explain to T'Pol like how wonderful it is getting like children's drawings and whether she wants to have some in a working area so she can look at it.
yeah,
And she's just like, what's the line? These renderings are crude but surprisingly accurate. And
the
then
Green
and then and
Vulcan.
then yeah, and then Trip's like getting out these pictures and be like, which one of these do you want? And it literally just has one where it's a Vulcan looking as depressed as anything with like massive ears and green skin. And she's just like the the epitome of how good T'Pol is as an actress,
Mm.
where she's able to say things with just an expression. Like the expression just says 1,000 billion words kind of thing. And
Jolene,
it's throughout this.
yeah, Jolene Blalock plays a great Vulcan because other people would look at that and go, that is just a disinterested actress. And you go, well, no, she's actually playing the epitome of what a Vulcan is,
Yeah.
which is, especially in the first season, completely disinterested, out of the water, and just finds everything that humans do either repugnant or just annoying. But she does it in such a Vulcan, uninterested,
Mm.
unemotional way. And we see that a lot in this episode.
Well, I think the point of this episode, like the joy of Enterprise, the early seasons, is the idea of just going. It kind of points out what the Vulcans were like when humanity
Yes.
met them, and that what we see later on, like the Vulcans that we get later on in Trek, are ones who are very sort of used to humans and they kind of understand humans now. Whereas in this one, we're like going, we're seeing like, who's it? Is it Varric? Is
Varric
it King
of the
Vanek? Vanek.
Timur. Vanek
Yeah.
of the
So
Timur. Yeah.
Captain Vanek, who's a character who's going, he's at the bottom right there. Um, and you just get to see like how cold Vulcans are and how they have no time for bullshit. They have no time for human bullshit.
It's
And
yeah.
then seeing T'Pol kind of being like that and being like, I don't get why you're so irrational. I don't get why you enjoy this sugary food. I don't get why you like this, that, and the other. And then slowly coming around, and that's the subplot. Well, it's the main plot of this episode, but it's
Mm.
that's what the breaking the ice is all about. It's about the idea of humans and Vulcans kind of coming together, like
The
and kind of
AB
going,
plot,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
The AB
Because I
plot
don't
are
know what's the A
very
plot. The A
the
plot
A
should be
plot
the
is
comet stuff, but it's not.
but
It's the A plot is to Paul, the B plot is the comet, I'd say.
but the AB plot are almost identical, just in a different scenario. So the A plot is obviously they found a comet, and this Vulcan ship is not following them, but studying how humans conduct an investigation into this comet. So we've
Hmm.
got the tensions between Archer and the Vulcan captain, and then the B plot is between T'Pol and Trip, where Trip
Hmm.
intercepts a signal coming through an encrypted channel. Um, and I mean, we'll spoil it, but it's going into T'Pol's quarters. So
Yeah.
again, there's trust issues between Archer and the Vulcan captain and Trip and T'Pol, and you've got like a more broader professional trust issue in terms of captain to captain, and then you've got a more intimate personal trust issue between Trip and T'Pol.
But it's all about humans versus
Yeah,
Vulcans. It's all
yeah,
about the idea of like, like for instance, like, and that's what I mean about a cultural thing, because you get like different cultures where you just like, I mean, it has the perfect example where basically when it gets revealed later on, T'Pol is like, oh, I'm in an arranged marriage
yeah,
and I can't do anything about it because my parents are the ones who get to decide. And he's like, wow, that's barbaric kind of thing. That's a silly
yeah,
thing. And it's like, but it isn't. And it's probably the most offensive thing said in the episode, actually, because you've got to think, to us who have our culture, it's
yeah,
fine to kind of assume that everyone works the same way as us, but you can't really put those views on another culture without it
yeah.
being insulting, without them going, hey, cool, but we don't believe that.
It's very judgmental, and we see that
Yeah.
this is the whole point of like early season, well, all of Enterprise, where humanity is exploring, but they are still not intolerable, but they are basing our values, humanity's values, on other cultures. And it's like, well, no, because other cultures have different ways, they have different traditions, different practices when it comes to stuff like this. And it's not about you should do this because this is right. It's about respecting their traditions, their cultures, their beliefs, which we see later on in the Next Generation, and especially in Deep Space Nine when it comes to the Bajorans and the prophets and their way of life and everything like that. And this is, like I said, that scene with Trip and T'Pol in T'Pol's quarters, where he's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, arranged marriages, we got rid of that when slavery was abolished," and
Yeah,
she's
that's
just,
it. He's like, we got rid of arranged marriages when slavery was abolished, and you're like,
yeah.
fucking hell, what a statement. And
But
it's true though, like from our point of view, we're like, yes, it's barbaric, like it's stupid, like the idea that it's the same as nowadays where you just go, oh, marriage, why do we need to get married? Or oh, why do like straight people have to have kids and stuff? And it's like, well, you can't just force that on another culture that might not be in the same ballpark as you. It's like, and that's what Enterprise is about. It's about meeting new races and going, hey, you can't put your standards on them and vice versa. And so it's this wonderful breaking the ice between the humans and the Vulcans in this that yeah is the episode effectively,
but
and
the
and
yeah.
seeing how shit the Vulcans are, like, so they're so, because they're not really bad, the Vulcans in this episode, they're just Vulcans. And
Mm,
then it's like later on, like I made a note about like when we get to Spock, you realize after watching all of Trek, Spock is the worst Vulcan around. Like Spock is a weird, wild child Vulcan, and and the fact he was the quintessential one to start with because they had no experience of them, and then you're going like, wow, he is the worst example of one because he is totally up for trying new things. He's totally up for sort of like, going against tradition, and he's totally up against sort of like doing this, that, and the other. And then in this, we basically go, we get to see T'Pol show how difficult and how what societal pressure there is to act like a proper Vulcan and to keep up with tradition. And then having her break that is a massive deal that people don't seem to appreciate.
But there's also this stigma surrounding T'Pol because she was initially only tasked with being on Enterprise for that one mission on in the first
Mhm.
episode, Broken Boat, to deliver the Klingon back to Kronos, and she decided to
Yeah,
stay on Enterprise, and it caused a lot of controversy within Vulcan High Command because
yeah.
she should not be. It's like she is not only what's the way, not only uh not slandering, but
Insulting or like
no, not insulting, but it's like it's the stigma around a Vulcan officer being on a human ship and
yeah,
answering to a human, when at this time in Star Trek the Vulcans, we know the Vulcans, the reason why, because obviously they see a lot of themselves in humans and a lot of themselves from 2000 years ago in
yeah.
humanity, when, before the Great Awakening and, the birth of logic. So they see a lot of fear in how humans behave, and they don't want what happened to them to happen to them. And then obviously the knock on effect would be the region.
Mm.
But it's the stigma that this sub commander decided to stay aboard Enterprise and answer to a human, and she sort of had a reputation tarnished, but she also sort of tarnishes the reputation of the Vulcans in a way. So she's sort of seen as a pariah of such with
Mm.
Vulcans. So we see it with the captain of the Vulcan ship here, where in the dinner scene, where he speaks to her in Vulcan, and then obviously we see it all the way through the rest of the first series of Enterprise when they recall her home and everything like that. With this episode, though, there is also a C plot, which is obviously Reed and Mayweather go down to the comet to take core
Yeah.
samples and do some scientific studies, and again, we see a little glimpse into Mayweather very early on into season one, where Mayweather, he's a space boomer,
Mm.
which means in Star Trek he was born in space. He was raised on freighters, so he hadn't seen Earth until he went to Starfleet Academy, and he'd never actually seen snow. So it was his first time landing on a comet, and obviously there was snow, which is just frozen ice because of the comet. And it's great to see a little bit of an exploration into that.
But
I
yeah, and
love
it's also like when they're traveling. So basically, the plot that we've kind of skipped on is that basically the Enterprise finds a comet that's absolutely huge. It's 82.6 kilometers in diameter. Vulcans aren't bothered by it at all because they're just like, oh, it's just another comet. But like
Yeah,
for Archer and the Enterprise, they're like, hey, this is the biggest comet humans have ever
yeah, yeah.
seen. And apparently the core of it is made of Elysium. No,
Iridium, Icilium.
Icilium, which they've never encountered before. So they're like, hey, let's go onto the comet. Let's put a drilling rig in there. Let's get some of the sample, and then we can kind of study it. And obviously, and then the Vulcans kind of just randomly turn up, being like, hey, cool. We're just gonna like watch your mission. For and it's very suspicious because obviously Archer just goes, hey, why are they spying on us? Like, and
Yeah,
yeah, and it's obviously we find out, and this is where the communication issue comes from, because we find out later it all gets explained. It all like gets explained exactly what's happening in this situation, and it's all that people are assuming stuff and acting on those assumptions and not actually communicating about them. And that's the plot of the episode, basically. But yeah, but then when Reed and Mayweather get sent down to the comet, they decide it's great because they have a little scene where the Mayweather's like, "Hey, has a human ever stepped on a comet before?" And like Reed's like, "No, well, it might be the first," and realizing that they might be the first person ever a human ever to step onto a comet, which is kind of a fun little first.
it is a fun little first, but we also see later on that they have a little bit of fun with it. Reed has a plan because Mayweather's like, "Shall we plant a flag?" And he's like, "No, I've got a better idea." And we see that they build a snowman, and I love the fact that they do that whilst the Vulcans are watching, and Archer's just like, "Who's the sculptor?" When they
It
ask
is
about the
It is so funny though, because it literally has it like sort of Reed's being serious and doing the mission and stuff as always, and then sort of turns around and Mayweather's just made a snowman, and Reed's like, okay, cool, and he gets a, what is it, the
Just like a
burner that
yeah,
yeah.
like a
He gets a
face.
blowtorch thing and he basically sort of puts a face into it and then immediately and they use a detonator charge as the nose. And then immediately they get a call from Archer being like, okay, so you do realize we're being observed by the Vulcans at the moment who are judging us. And then it shows this wonderful shot of him on the bridge watching a screen that's literally just showing them pissing around with a snowman, exactly how the Vulcans would be seeing it. And
um,
it's this total thing of going, we want to look good in front of the Vulcans, and yeah, you're building a snowman.
we we see like we've mentioned there, Trip intercepts an encrypted message that has come from the Vulcan vessel, and it was directed to the Enterprise,
Mm.
and Hoshi basically says yes, it's a Vulcan signal. It's come from the starship Chimera, and
And
Trip's
it's
like
gone
what
straight into T'Pol's
straight to
quarters.
T'Pol's quarters. What we did skip on is when obviously
Yeah.
the Vulcan ship arrives. Archer brings T'Pol straight to his ready room and goes, "Do you know why they are here?" Because obviously Archer has still got this issue of trust when it comes to
Yeah.
T'Pol, being the only Vulcan on board, and he's like, "Why are these Vulcans constantly following us? We had a ship the other week that when we tried to intercept and speak to, warped away. Why are they so interested in us? Do they what have we done wrong?"
Mm.
And basically makes a promise that any communication she will have with the Vulcan ship will be run through him
Mm.
first. And then later on, we find a transmission being intercepted because it was a. They said it came through like a really weird method.
Yeah. It was
So
proper under the
it
radar.
was under the
The way
radar, but the sensor log had picked it up, and it was a ship to ship transmission. Halsey confirmed it was a Vulcan transmission, and then Trip does the right thing as a Starfleet officer and reports it to his captain because he's like, "This is an encrypted message. It's come from the Vulcan
Mm.
ship. It's gone straight to Paul's quarters." But Trip, I have to give props to Trip in this episode,
Mm.
not just because he's got frosted tips, but he all the way through he does the right thing, but also owns up to the stuff he feels awful about as well. So they go on about the
Well,
transmission. It's gone to Paul's quarters, and he goes, "Do you want me to decrypt it? Do you want me to decipher it and
well,
find out the messages?"
Hoshi's basically sort of, okay, I've decrypted it. It's in Vulcan. And then Trip asks whether she's read it, and she's like, it didn't seem appropriate. So
Yeah,
she basically, I've decrypted it. It's in Vulcan. If you want to read it, you just need to put it through the translation matrix.
yeah.
And he's like, okay, cool. And he does it and then realizes his mistake effectively. But
Yeah.
but I think this is the whole thing, though. It's the fact that this is one of the notes I had for later, but it's the idea of it's realizing the miscommunications between the different races, but then also realizing that they get to the same end
Hmm.
different ways. So for
Yeah.
T'Pol has all of her judgments and how she does things based upon logic. Like it's basically unemotional logic. Whereas Trip has all of his based upon morality, but they do the same thing. Where like T'Pol has to do the best thing possible, the correct thing, not because she wants to, but because it's the best thing to do. Whereas Trip has to take the moral high ground and has to own up to doing something bad because he knows morally he has to do it. So it basically means that they're both on the same wavelength, but through different means. And I think there's something fascinating about that.
But it's also,
And it's how they're so compatible. It's how
yeah,
the Trip and T'Pol relationship that we get going on, which this is the first part, and this is the first
yeah.
insinuation of that. It goes, yes, these are two people from different races, but who have enough common ground that they can fall in love, you know?
But we also see Trip is the not the passionate one, but he knows when to break the ice. He knows when to kick back. He knows when to relax. He knows when to enjoy himself. When he's in the mess hall and he gets the last slice of pecan pie from the mess hall, and
Yeah.
he gets a glass of milk from the vending machine.
Why does he
Vending
sniff it, by the way? Does pecan pie smell?
pecan pie. As a man who is fatally allergic to nuts, I have not sniffed
Yeah.
it, but I would imagine it would kill me. Um,
It's a weird
honest,
scene. It's a wonderful scene
fun
where it shows
fact,
him
fun
getting in the mess hall, finding a bit of pecan pie, and he proper sniffs it, and I'm a bit like, this is awkward as fuck. But
fun fact. If you want me to have an allergic reaction without actually ingesting nuts, put a Snickers in my face and make me smell it. My throat will close up.
wow,
Um, but I look.
that's a sexual antic for later, I guess.
It really is. But he goes to the vending machine. The vending machine, by the way, again, Enterprise was the first Star Trek shot on HD film before HD became a standard thing. So everything you see on Netflix or Paramount Plus, they haven't upscaled it. They have literally just went 1080p,
Yeah,
and it's there. The vending machine, it's a vending machine replicator. So it's like you can have this, you can have this blend, or you can just press a button and have, and it literally says the words cola,
yeah.
soda, coffee, and everything like that. But we see a contrast in this scene, in that scene, sorry, with Trip with his pecan pie and milk, and then T'Pol comes in and just has green tea, which is just like the basic healthy tea. And he's like, "Oh, don't get the whatever blend, because you'll be awake all night." She's like, "Vulcans are not susceptible to caffeine as humans are." And
Yeah.
again, we see her with a green tea reading whatever was received. Obviously, we don't know at that time. It was
With
meant
this
to be
thing,
just yeah, yeah.
we have a scene earlier where basically we have Paul getting back to her quarters where the message has just been received, and obviously I just wrote down like, oh, she's received a hi, I'm a Nigerian prince and I need some help getting money into the country. That's what it
Well, no,
translates to.
the latest trend at the moment. Let me just go into my junk file. The latest trend seems to be your
I
order
got
has
a
been
horny milks
placed.
email earlier.
Your order has been
So
placed. Please pay P&P, and then your solar panel can be installed for free. And I'm like, nope. Just checking to see if I've got a job interview. No, I don't. Um,
I
so
just love the idea of like I got what is it, horny milks in your area one. I'm just like, good for them.
now, if it was horny
Good for
dilfs,
them.
if it was horny dilf,
Horny Dills. Oof. It was Horny Adams. Oof.
if it was a
I
horny
made the
Lee,
mistake. I made the mistake last night. I was doing the Bobby's viewing party for Newcastle because we had Kyron Thax from the latest season of Drag Race UK, and we were interviewing them. And I made the foolish thing of opening TikTok. You know how TikTok, where basically it comes up with an actual like hey, you have a thing to check out, and then you click it, and then it just decides to take you to a standard page showing any old shit. And you're like, why did you not take me to the thing I clicked on? Okay, how do I find the thing? Anyway, but basically it opened up what is it, Gaming Up North, and it was Jake and Adam, but then immediately every single gay within like 5 fucking meters of me was like, who's that guy? They're like, who's that guy with the guns? And I was just like going, it's Adam. Yes, he's
you
gorgeous.
you
Yeah,
see
yes, he's an absolute dill. And it's just like, and everyone's just like, is he gay? And it's like, sadly not, but we
you
can't
see
have everything.
you see that. What I see, because my girlfriend has to have the mandatory 30 minutes of TikTok before bed. I I saw one and I was mentally scarred because it was a guy doing an impression of Stephen Hawking eating the ass of Donald Duck. Yeah, and yeah.
I don't think I have the appropriate drill to get that thought out
No,
of
no,
my
sorry,
head right
sorry,
now.
no, yeah, yeah. So it was Stephen Hawking eating the ass of Donald Duck, and I'm excused. I am so sorry, mother and father, but it was just like, oh, that's amazing, and it's just Stephen Hawking going lick, lick, lick. But moving on to the episode, we see
Zoe has a lot of explaining to do. But yeah, but it's a
the Mickey
but no,
Mouse
but
one.
yeah. But I think the scene though, the quiet scene between Trip and T'Pol is wonderful because she is very standoffish. She's just very blank as she usually is, like this early on in the show.
Because she's
And
received that
he
message, yeah.
Yeah, and he is being as endearing as possible. This is the wonderful thing about Trip, where he is just such a beautiful soul, like
Yeah.
in and out, the character, and is just literally going, hey, I've had a shit day, but then I found out the chef had made pecan pie and it's my favorite, so now everything's getting better. Do you want some? And she's just like, it is mostly sugar. Why would I want that? Like, uh, and she's just really standoffish, but you can see there's a glint, like she's acted so perfectly that there's little glint of her just being like, I'm curious about
Yeah.
this, like this. and it's wonderful. And then she just, and he's pushing her, basically saying, "Hey, are you okay? You don't seem okay. Do you need to talk about anything?" And she's like, "I'm fine." And then she storms off. But it's a beautiful little scene showing the different dynamic between these two characters. I really enjoyed it.
Um, in terms of Archer and the Vulcan captain, Vanek,
Mm.
is it Vanek?
Vanek, yeah.
Vanek.
Bannock.
The dinner.
I wrote it down as Bannock because that's the first time it gets pronounced. It's like Bannock, but then Archer from then on says Vanek. So I'm
I
like, okay,
know
cool.
we normally do scene by scene, but I think this one is a very good one to sort of like bounce between these story plot points.
I think the fact is that the plot points and the politics and the stuff between them is so complex and so interesting that I don't think we can do a sort of scene by scene thing.
So the dinner scene with Trip,
Yeah.
T'Pol, Archer, and Vanek. This is so brilliantly done because this Vulcan is cold as ice. Again, trying to
Mm.
break the ice, emphasizing the name of the story. Um, and you see Archer trying and really
Yeah.
try, and you can see it's through gritted teeth because Archer, understandably, is very hung up on Vulcans because he blames the Vulcans for his father not seeing his engine come to fruition when he was still alive.
Mm.
And we see him trying to break the ice in this scene, trying to come up with different, your ship is a Sirach class, it must be going to 6.2, 6.5, and Vanek is just, Vanek is literally right. Based on my
He
very
is
brief,
fantastic. The actor is so fantastic because
it's
he's
so
such a
brilliant.
dickhead
Based
by
on
our
my
standards.
based on my very brief dalliance with Tinder like 11 years ago, it is quintessentially that you try and have a conversation and you get one word back.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so you Archer's like, oh yeah, that must be the Surah class. What, you can get that to warp 6, 6.5, and he's just like 6.5. And he's going on about, oh, I was on this other Vulcan ship and I knew this captain. Do you know him? And he's just like, not personally. And it's just so, the responses are done so well and it's so coldly done. And then
Yeah.
they go, Trip asks about the warp nacelles. I'd love to get a peek inside those warp nacelles. He's like, classified. And
Yeah.
again, it's like
He
he
is
does not
he's
want to
not giving
engage.
anything at
Nothing at
all.
all. And I love
And
that.
then he has
Go
the
on.
best line. Well,
Yeah.
it's the fact that T'Pol explains it though. T'Pol just goes, "Oh, in human culture, it is." Hold on, I wrote down what she actually
Customary.
says. Um, yeah, on Earth, it is customary to provide personal information with someone you've just met. And it is, and it's this perfect thing of just going, yeah, when you put it like that, it does sound that kind of absurd that we do that we literally just talk about ourselves to an absolute stranger. But it kind of points out that, like, that this Vulcan just being like, why are they asking me about my ship and my career? What the hell? And and they're kind of going, look, you need to understand that humans are like this. And the humans need to understand that the Vulcans are like this. It's a brilliantly done scene because the Vulcan captain isn't in the wrong. It's
Mm.
just they're so different. Like it's such a different race at this point.
But the delivery of the next line where Archer looks at the food and goes, "You've hardly touched your poktar. Is there anything wrong with it?" And he's like, "No, because if there is, we can." And he's like, "I've already eaten." Oh,
Yeah.
mwah!
I just love it where he's
It's
he's been invited for dinner and he's already eaten. And you're just going like, you fuck.
yeah, yeah. You. Like the Liam Shaw before Liam Shaw was a thing in Picard. It is just like, I've already eaten. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
and that is when Archer just decides to just like, he doesn't snap, but you can just see him just like,
Well,
okay.
it had the best line, the proper just like sort of mic drop is basically Archer being like, "Well, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask us?" And Varric just goes, "Humans have never held much interest for me," and just both of the like both Archer and Trip are just like,
Surely,
yeah, and Archer's like, "Get this shithead off my ship."
surely, Synoiz, surely we have both been in a situation where we've had the exact same response, where someone's trying to like interrogate you or get to know you,
Yeah.
and you're just like, humans have never held much interest for me because he's just
It's
like,
just
I
like,
don't want to be here. Fuck off. Leave me alone.
yeah. Frankly, my dear, I couldn't give a damn.
But yeah, so he's just like,
But
so
oh my god,
he immediately goes to the captain of the Vulcan ship, and he's just like, why are you spying on us?
yeah,
And it's brilliant because he breaks down this whole facade of being polite and everything like that. It's just like, okay, why
yeah.
are you spying on us? And again, it's just Vanek
And
gives
the
nothing away.
but the comeback is brutal. It's literally Vanek just being like, if we were spying on you, you wouldn't be aware of it. Like, like we're not spying on you because we would be doing a better job of it, like, and we find out, like, obviously, like, this is, I suppose we have to spoil this scene a little bit because we're not doing it in order, but it's the fact of like, this is the joy of the episode of,
Oh,
like,
are you there?
they're not.
Oh,
Vanek
there
is
you are.
doing that.
You're there.
Oh,
You're
is
fine.
it
You're
there?
fine.
Yeah,
Yep,
cool.
you're fine.
The joy of the episode is that Vanek is basically, yeah, he is not there to spy on them. He is not there to follow them. That what it turns out is because of the message that T'Pol has been sent through, which in their way is normal, where they're going, hey, it's a highly personal message, so of course we sent it decrypted so no one can actually see it.
Yeah.
And the humans have gone, hey, that looks suspicious. And the Vulcans are like, no, in our culture, that would be perfectly fine. So it's another disconnect. And then the message is basically going, basically the message is revealed to be, hey, you were, arranged to marry your, like, arranged marriage, like, husband, like, next week. You have to go and do it. So if you're not going to leave Enterprise, leave Enterprise, come on Vanek's ship, and he will take you home effectively. And you need to make a decision. So effectively, what we find out is that Vanek isn't there for Enterprise at all.
Mm.
He's there to be an escort for T'Pol. So he's only hanging around. So he's only observing the humans because he's like, well, I might as well kill some
I've
time
got nothing else to
while we're
do.
waiting for her to
Yeah.
decide this thing. But he can't say anything because it's such a personal matter. And then you've got Archer like going, well, you must be here for a special reason, and it must be to sort of spy on us, and it must be doing this. And it's all this miscommunication between the different races and stuff. And he's just like, yeah, I have no interest in spying on you because I don't give a shit about humans. And actually, we have no interest in this comet. We're not here. And obviously Archer's like, well, why are you here? And he's like, well, I can't really tell you because it's a private matter between the Vulcans and T'Pol. So, and we wouldn't normally talk about this. And it's all that, like, I remember when I did CBT and like cognitive behavioral therapy, where it
Been
was all
there.
about not mind reading. Like mind reading was the thing that I used to do loads, which is basically if you meet someone and they have a harsh reaction to you or they're not nice to you, you immediately go, what have I done wrong? Or if
Yep.
you bump into someone in the street and they don't say hi to you and you go, oh God, they must hate me. Why do they hate me? Kind of thing. And then and it's all about taking that apart and going, how are you jumping to that conclusion? How do you know that thing that you're assuming? Exactly like Archer does in this one, where it's like, well, you don't. You have to take it apart and be like, well, actually, I don't know that they hate me. They haven't said that they hate me. They must be, and you go, oh, they're having a bad day, or oh, they didn't actually see you, or oh, actually, they're just like that with everyone. You just assumed it's like, something to do with you. And that's what the breaking the ice is in this episode. It's the breaking the ice between Trip and T'Pol. It's breaking the ice literally with the comet, and then it's breaking the ice between the humans and the Vulcans to realize how they view situations differently. It's beautiful.
The way that Trip approaches to Paul and admits, "Look, we received this message. We didn't know what it was, and I had to read it because we didn't know what it was. It could have been. We can admire his honesty towards to Paul, but we can also understand why he had to do it. Like, why did this
Mm.
message come? And is it a threat to the ship? Is it a threat to the crew, the security of
Yeah,
the ship? He did what he did the right thing, and what he is doing here because he has such high morals. He's owning up to what he has done, and it might have been the right thing, but also he still feels bad about prying into T'Pol's personal life, and we see T'Pol for the first time properly, like nearly losing her cool at the
yeah.
fact that he has read a personal message where she's like, "I've got other personal correspondence in my quarters too.
I
Would you
I
like to
love
read
it.
them?"
Yeah, she's like, you read my letter, and he's like, oh, I didn't mean to, and she's like, I have more letters in my quarters. Would you like to read them as well? And it's got this edge of anger to it,
Yeah.
and it's so sort of
The
on to
way
Paul, and
the
it's
way
beautifully
Blaylock
done.
plays it, yeah, because she's just like, there's no emotion, but there is emotion within that is
Mm,
starting to bubble, and you could see like T'Pol is controlling this anger within her. But again, props to Tucker to go to her and admit that and apologize to her that he did that, because that is who Trip is. He is driven by his emotions. He is passionate, but he's also got very high morals and will own up when he has done when he feels he's done something wrong.
well, yeah, and then we get a wonderful scene between where between T'Pol and Phlox in sickbay, because
Right there.
basically, yeah, there we go. And it's basically like T'Pol being like, "Hey, I'm really tense and I've got neck pain and stuff," and he's like, "Oh, it's a tension,
It's a
it's
tension
what does he
headache.
say? It's a tension headache,
Yeah.
um, and stuff." And he's like, "Oh, have you been sleeping properly?" And she's like, "I haven't slept in 3 days," and he's like, "That'll do it. What's keeping you up?" And it's like, "Oh, if it's worries, maybe do you want to talk to me about it?" Because Phlox is this wonderful neutral character where he's
Mhm.
such a caring person, but
Yeah.
he is a pure doctor. He's probably the most typical doctor we get in all of Trek, and it's interesting that he's the alien one, you know?
He's
Like,
just incredibly curious and very embracing
yeah.
of new cultures, and is always up for trying new things. He's like not the typical crappy bedside manner doctor that we have in
Well,
all of Star Trek when you think about it, bar
you
Benga.
ha well, yeah, you have McCoy, who you can't imagine being like, "Hey, tell me about your problems, and
Yeah,
I'll do that."
have a
You
whiskey.
can't. Yeah, that's it. You can't imagine McCoy doing that. The Doctor would probably try, but he'd end up making you feel worse. It's like, like yeah, Pulaski wouldn't really help. Crusher probably would, but then she'd probably inject you with like nitroglycerin or
And
something. But it's
die.
just
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Or
yeah, it's just like,
have
okay.
your baby and keep it for 20 years. Um,
But
but
but it's the idea that Phlox is so kind and caring that he's like, you can speak to me if you want to, and then but then he basically says to her like, look, if there's someone on the crew that you can confide in to get this weight off your shoulders, I'd recommend talking to them. And then it basically to Paul, and then gives a mild analgesic, and I don't know what
yeah,
one of them is, but we
an
hear it a lot in Trek.
analgesic, mild analgesic, basically just a paracetamol. That's all it
Oh, is
is.
it?
It's
Okay.
yeah. Have an ibuprofen. Have a
Yeah.
Lucasade, an ibuprofen.
But then we
But
get a wonderful scene where basically sort of we have Trip arriving at T'Pol's quarters,
yeah,
and she's basically invited him round, being like, "Okay, cool. So you're the only person who knows about this, so I'm going to talk to you about it." And it's another breaking the ice thing. And he's just like, "Why am I here?" And she's like, You were far from my first choice," which is the most horrendous thing you could say to anyone. But she's like, "But since you're the only person who knows about this, and that how
you'll
in order
do.
to confide in someone else, because obviously, like, Trip is just like, I kind of don't want to be talking about this with you. Can you not talk to Hoshi, or can you not talk to like one of the sort of married sort of like crew members?" And T'Pol's like, "No."
But
And it's a wonderful scene between them.
this is the scene where we're on about where she divulges it's an arranged marriage, and he makes that controversial comment that we abolished arranged
Yeah.
marriage when we abolished slavery. And again, it's that, as you alluded to, the communication, but it's the understanding and tolerance of other cultures, which humanity at this point is still trying to learn, and obviously is really struggling with. And what may be bad for humanity in terms of arranged marriages
Hmm.
is not necessarily bad for Vulcans, and they are steeped in tradition. And to
Hmm.
play devil's advocate, it is the most logical way to sort out that thing. It's like my parents will arrange a marriage between these parents, between us both, and then we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to take time out or anything like that. We can just focus on what we need to
Yeah.
do,
There
and
is
then this is a
nothing
done thing.
more there's nothing more illogical than love. So it's the
Yeah,
idea of like if you did have Vulcans that weren't in arranged marriages who like just went with the people that they felt for, then that would be chaos. That would be far too much chaos for their
as
society.
we
So it
see in
makes
Strange
sense
New
in there.
Worlds.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this idea of like this is it makes sense within the context of their society, even if it is, weird and like, barbaric to humans. I mean, but the greatest thing about this scene is we see T'Pol struggling.
Yeah,
We see her genuinely struggling with, but this is what is expected of me by society.
yeah,
Like Vulcan culture and tradition is that I have to do this. This is more important than me. I
yeah.
will get rejected by my society if I do not do this thing, if I don't go ahead with this arranged marriage. Even and Trip is like, but what do you want? And she's like,
Yeah.
what I want doesn't matter as much as tradition. And this is what her different, like makes her different from every Vulcan we've met. Like even things like Tuvok, where Tuvok is evolved enough, like because it's far enough in the future that he's like, I can understand there are exceptions to things and there are stuff like this. But this is right at the beginning in the interactions between humans and Vulcans, where they just go, she is literally tearing herself apart. She is not sleeping. She is getting stress, like sort of stress headaches like because of it, because she's just like, I can't go against my tradition and how suffocating that tradition is. And it's beautiful. And then Trip just being like, do what you want to do what makes you happy.
But let's not forget, she's worried about this because she will be rejected from Vulcan society. She's already got a stigma surrounding her because she is a serving Vulcan on a human ship. So it's sort
Yeah.
of like I already have this image within Vulcan society, and I already have this stigma surrounding me. I do not want to be further, clashed as an outcast of society and be looked down upon because I've also rejected a tradition that has been steeped in thousands of years of history. They will say that I have become human, and
Mm.
my emotions have been compromised by working on a human ship for so long and stuff like that. So you can see why internally she's
Mm.
tearing herself apart. She is not sleeping because she's got an emotion, but she's got anxiety within her that she's finding hard to come to terms and that she's finding hard to deal with because she's got
Mm.
no one else on board. So, as you
Yeah.
said, when she speaks to Trip, you were far from my first choice. Um, and the way he just walks out, and he sort of, what does he say when he walks out? I don't have my notes. Oh,
He says something very very grand. I think I quite like it. It's
I'm
hold
trying, I
on.
think this is it here. I can't, I'm trying to find it there.
Mm.
No, I can't find it. But yeah, so
But he basically, like it's the conversation is fascinating because it's the fact of like, like, because he's basically Trip is trying to find solutions of going, hey, if you want to get married to this arranged marriage guy, you why don't you do that and then come back? And she's like, oh, it's tradition for me to stay with him for like a year after our marriage.
yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, why can't he come to Enterprise? Oh, he's an architect. Why would he want to be on a
I love that.
starship?
Yeah,
And it would be illogical for him to sort of join a starship. And it's like, oh, fair enough, and it's like, and it's a thing, but I think at the end he makes the point of just going, look, you need to do what you need to do. Like you need to,
yeah,
why are you being weighed down by tradition so much? And she, and obviously she's like very cold to him and goes, hey, yes, this, what would your advice be? And he basically says, hey, do what you want to do. And she's like, okay, this has been a mistake. Like talking to you has been a
yeah.
mistake. And they kind of end it badly, but then she does take it on board. Like she does kind of think about that.
The actual like the central plot with the comet, we see that Reed and Mayweather have placed the charges. They've put Vulcaneers on the snowman because obviously the Vulcans are watching. So
It's a
that is
picture
it.
at the bottom there.
It is a
There
yeah.
we go.
It is a metaphorical fuck you to the Vulcans because they know they're watching. So they blow up this. They blow up the snowman and start doing the samples and stuff. But what we see is because of the explosion, it's shifted the orbit, the rotation of the
Mm.
comet, and the where they are on the comet will suddenly face the nearest star, and the ice will start to melt. It will become geologically unstable.
Well, it's
Um,
not that the ice will melt. It's basically going, you're going to be like in direct line of like star. So basically, it's
yeah,
going to get hundreds of degrees hotter, so you
yeah,
will die.
yeah. So we see that, but again, issues start to occur when they try and take off on the shuttle. When they are getting ready to leave to get to the shuttle pod, they try and climb, and Mayweather slips and dislocates his knee.
Mm.
So they are struggling to rush to the shuttle pod. As they get to the shuttle pod, they try and blast off.
Well, no, as they get to the shuttle pod, the ice starts
Starts to
breaking, like
crack.
cracking
Yeah.
around them and stuff. And then they get to the shuttle pod. Apparently, no one felt the need to put seatbelts on. So just saying,
Well, why
corrupted
would you?
officer. Hmm. But they have them.
This is
But there's no
America, darling.
anti-grav. I'm really baffled. I'm like, so there's no seatbelts and no like, anti-gravity or no fake gravity in the shuttle pod. And I'm like, what's the point? But yeah, so they try and take off, but obviously as soon as they put the thrusters on, it melts the ice, so they just end
Yeah.
up collapsing through the ground. So on the Enterprise, they're basically going, hey, we should, like, hey, we'll pull them out of the actual sort of ice using the grappler, which is basically just it's like a
It's a
little
grapple
a
gun.
magnet. Yeah, it's a magnet on a stick that they fire out and then sort of try
Yeah.
to winch them back
But
in, which is so low technology.
as they are doing that, because Archer takes the con, he takes he takes the helm, because he
Mm,
is a pilot, so he's piloting the ship and he's trying to like pinpoint the Enterprise to get them, and then
mm.
Vanek is messaging them, asking if they require assistance, and this is where we see Archer's pride taking precedence over the safety of his crew, because he's like, "I'll take a message. I'm busy at the moment," and
Yeah, and
they
to Paul's like, hey, Vanek is asking whether you need any help, and he's like, we don't need help from them, kind of thing. And it's like, well, you kind
and
of do.
well, they do, because they fire the grappler, and Trip is only able to get one lock on the shuttle pod.
Mm,
The other one misses, and they try and pull them up with just that, because to see if it works, and it doesn't. The shuttle pod slips and goes further and further down into the cavern,
mm.
and we see that again. Vanek is like, do you need assistance? And Archer is sort of, nope, we have got this, we can deal with this, we will get them out. And this is
Yeah,
where T'Pol sort of confronts Archer and says, they have got a tractor beam, they can pull the shuttle pod out safely. We don't have time, because within an hour the ice will refreeze over the chasm and you
yeah,
won't be able to get them out. There is no harm in accepting help. Vanek expects you to refuse help because he believes humans are too full of pride and too stubborn.
mm.
And what I actually love is Trip taking to Paul's side and basically saying, we need to accept the help from the Vulcans. We need them to use this tractor beam to get them out. It's the only way we're going to get them out
Yeah,
in time. And, you know, Archer is very, as we say, Archer has issues with the Vulcans, but he's also got a lot of pride where,
mm,
previous episodes we've seen Vulcan spying on him and everything like that.
mm.
But to show growth within Archer as well, we see inside the shuttle pod it starts to move, and then it's being tracted out by the Timur. And I love
Yeah.
the fact that like Reed is like, "Go ahead, Enterprise." Is like, "This is Captain Vennick of the Starship Timur. Prepare to start your
Get,
engines." And
yeah.
I love that because it's so passive aggressive the way it's done. But they tractor them out. And even then, like Archer, through gritted fucking teeth on the bridge, he's like, "Thank you very much." He's got that Mr. Beast smile. There you
Is
go.
that a smile? I just found out who Mr. Beast was the other day, and I was just
Dead
like,
behind the
oh,
eyes. That's who he is.
yeah. Well, yeah, let's leave YouTube. But
I sold my soul for millions of dollars.
doesn't he do
uh,
energy drinks and stuff?
uh, he does horrible things. So come at me, Mr. Beast. I'm broke. What are you gonna get? But he an NX-01 model. You can have it. I have two. But we see Archer swallow his pride in the scene where he's appreciative of the help.
Well, it's
Um,
it's him realizing that the Vulcans literally do mean it. Just because they don't have an emotion behind it, Vanek is like, is there anything you need? Like
yeah.
despite the insult that was dinner, where, because you got to think from Vanek's point of view, it was a massive insult for them to be like, hey, we demand that you come over to our ship. And then we're going to sort of ask you loads of questions and talk to you for ages, even though you don't want
Oh,
to be here
oh,
and whatnot. And then basically, and then just refuse any kind of help from you. And then Vanek's just probably sitting there being like, why the hell, like these are horrible creatures, kind of thing.
As an
And
antisocial person, the worst thing you could ever do is
mm,
invite me to dinner and
yeah,
then ask me a load of questions about myself. I'm like, my
yeah.
brother in Christ, leave me alone.
Yeah, and it's when you see it from Vanek's point of view in this, and then it's the fact that he's still there being like, yes, but we are Vulcans, we're meant to help people, so I will still offer you help, even though you've been this massive, like,
Yeah,
pain in my ass the whole fucking episode. I'm literally here to deliver an episode and then wait for this bitch to make her mind up about whether she's actually going to leave or not. And that's literally Vanek throughout this whole
yeah.
thing. And he's just like, I fucking hate humans and I'm having to deal with them because of this. It's like, I'm having to pretend to care about a comet because I'm not allowed to suggest what I'm actually. And you kind of get it. And the fact that he still does the good things. And this is what Vulcans are. Vulcans are cold, logical, but caring. Like they will
Yeah.
do the good thing. They will give you the coat off their backs if you need it. And that's kind of wonderful, I think, but he just doesn't give a shit. He's genuinely just like, I'm doing this because it's my way.
But then we see T'Pol advise Captain Archer that she's going to stay on. She's going to stay on board.
Well,
Something which
it's
bites
actually
her in the
well,
ass later in the
it's
season.
better than that. It's better than that because basically, yeah, yeah, no. Basically, Topol goes, Captain, can I have permission to transmit a message to the Vulcan ship?
Mm,
And he says yes. And then she transmits a message that effectively says, hey, I'm not coming with you. The marriage is off. Sorry,
yeah,
and whatnot. But it's the fact that she asks for permission here, as in she's realized this is how you communicate with humans. He's realized this is how you communicate with Vulcans, and the ice is broken and the
hmm
cultures are working together. And I just think it's such an important detail that she asks permission there rather than just sending the message because that's what got this whole mess in the first place.
it's a great lesson in communication and understanding other people and other cultures, and it is a great life lesson for a lot of people in the real world.
Hmm.
Because the way you behave is not necessarily the way that other people behave or other people
Yeah.
react.
I mean,
Um,
I've been having a lot of stuff lately, dealing with people who are autistic. Like
yeah,
I know it's very much looking like I'm on the spectrum, so I'm gonna have to go down the route of how do you get like tested and stuff. But it's the fact that when you deal with autistic people, you're like, I need to rethink the way I approach conversations. I need to
yep,
rethink the assumptions I make about interactions and stuff. And then you realize that rather than just being like, hey, I can treat everyone exactly the same because we're all on the same wavelength. And this is a great sort of example of like through Trek, like metaphoric, where we can kind of go, hey, the Vulcans are actually for neurodivergent people and the
yeah.
humans are sort of like standard divergent people, standard like neurotypical people. You could frame it like that and be like, hey, look, we all need to work together, we just need to work out how, and not assume.
The final scene is obviously T'Pol in her quarters meditating, which is a great
Hmm.
symbol of her upholding her Vulcan tradition. And then the camera pans down to a nice, right there, slice of pecan pie. So we see that T'Pol has learned that she can maintain her traditions and
Hmm.
and her culture whilst also beginning to embrace the humanity that she is surrounded
Hmm.
by and
And
try.
the illogical and the
Yeah,
it's just made of sugar. There is no nutritional value of it, but you
yeah,
can still enjoy it.
you can
And it's
enjoy it. Yeah,
this, and it's also the pecan pie is a wonderful symbol of the friendship, the blossoming friendship between her and Trip. Like this is the her a Trip becoming a part of her life and part of a relationship with her on the ship. And I think it's just fucking hell, man, this episode is so good. You know what? I'm gonna make a statement. This is my favorite episode of Enterprise. I'm actually gonna say this is my favorite episode of Enterprise because it does everything. I mean, what is it? Is it Doctor Doctor? Like, is an amazing one. It's an amazing
Dear
Phlox
Doctor.
episode. Dear Doctor, an amazing Phlox episode. But this one has everything. Every character has something to do in the episode. It might be minor, like Phlox or Hoshi, but they do their characters well. And then it's the fact of the the metaphors within it, the subtext within it, the acting within it, the interactions between everyone, and then the lore building, like the I we need to talk about it in more depth, I think, after this. But the scene where they are talking to the school kids, where they're recording a message for the school
Oh,
kids and stuff, you're just like, this is an amazing scene because it kind of points out like yeah, they are celebrities. Like this isn't like Starfleet as we know it, like in Next Generation times, where it's just like, oh well, it's just
these are the
these things.
equivalents. These are the equivalent of the Apollo.
Yeah,
Is it Apollo 11? These are the
the one that
equivalent.
didn't blow up, I
Yeah,
think.
these are the ones. This is the equivalent of the Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, the first men on the moon. These
Yeah,
are major figures in Earth's culture at the time. These humans have gone further than any human has ever gone before. They are
mm,
literally breaching the final frontier, and it is a huge endeavor. They are on the Earth's first Warp 5 ship. They are exploring.
mm,
They are and it's a huge honor for these 80 people to actually venture out. And we see that, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, where they're explaining stuff like how do people have romance on a ship? Is
yeah.
it allowed? How do you when you go to the toilet? Where does it all go? And I love that Trip is just like, pause the thing. A poop question, sir, but
It's
it makes
but it's
sense.
perfect. It makes sense, but it's perfect. The relationships between them, like the buddy
The
relationship
best
between Trip and
friends.
Archer is just
Yeah,
so good. It's a relationship between Trip and T'Pol is absolutely perfect. The relationship between Phlox and anyone is absolutely perfect. The relationship with like Hoshi and like just Hoshi is one of my favorite Trek characters. I absolutely
yeah.
adore Hoshi. And that's why I don't like season 3 and 4 because they forget Hoshi exists. Plain and simple. They just go, we don't have any use for her anymore because Universal Translator
There's
works,
a
and that's
Hoshi
boring
episode in
shit.
season 3.
I know, but it's not enough, you know. I
All right.
feel like they forget about the character. The same with Mayweather. But no, but that's the thing, and it's and the only criticism I'd have of that scene where they're doing that, well, it's also, sorry, lots of tangents and tangents, but I love that scene because of how nervous Archer is about it.
Yeah.
Like they are exploring space. They have dealt with Klingons. They've dealt with Vulcans. The episode before this, isn't that the Andorian one in the temple where they have like
For Jen.
firefights and stuff with Vulcans and stuff? I'm sure it's like the one just before or something like that. And you're just going like, these are major things. And Archer's like, shit, I have to record a message for school children. This is a bit stressful,
The
And it's
Andorian
like,
incident. Yeah, it is. It's the
yeah,
Andorian incident.
and I love it where it's just like going, wow, this is, and it's this humanity it shows of just going like, and all the character building throughout the whole episode, showing what a good Dr. Phlox is, showing how T'Pol doesn't understand pecan pie or confiding in this, the Archer's scared of talking to kids, the fact of like, Trip is
It's
kind
world
of like,
building.
hey, I want to represent myself, and yet you're telling me to answer a bloody poop question.
But
It's
it's world building, because it's like,
yeah,
yes, we are developing these relationships, we are developing these characters in this scene, but it's also building the world around them. And it's like, yeah, they don't have replicators, they have resequencers, they have a universal translator, but they still have to manually program it, and Hoshi is the one that has to do it. And it's building the world of 2151, where it's like, yeah, we've got transporters, but they're not really safe, and we don't have tractor beams because the Vulcans won't let us
yeah,
have them. And we don't have replicators because we resequence everything, and so when you go to the toilet, it can then become a pair of boots or a hull plate or something like that. And it's like, it's really interesting because it's like, yeah, it's only 100 years or 150 years from where we are now. And it's like,
mm,
yeah, we wouldn't, without the Vulcan help, we wouldn't develop half of this stuff anyway. And I just think it's a great world building episode between humans and Vulcans, Vulcan traditions, how Enterprise runs, how people live on the ship, and just how they see themselves and how Earth sees them. because they just, they are Starfleet officers exploring the galaxy. However, they
Yeah.
are major celebrity figures back on Earth because they are making new discoveries all the time and expanding Earth's horizons. And it's just how they deal with that. And it's great because you see Captain Archer as this not stoic, but sort of like he is the captain and he's gung ho and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, but he still gets nervous because he's talking to a bunch of school kids.
Yeah, and I love that. It's showing the different responsibilities, and we get it occasionally in other series, like sort of like where we have Captain Picard Day is a great example of Picard being like, I hate this part of my job, like why am I doing this,
I'll be on
and
the
stuff.
brink.
But yeah, but I just found it so endearing, this scene. And obviously we have it where like Phlox kind of chimes in when it's a germ question. He's like, aha, I could maybe answer this. And my only criticism of this scene is that basically I don't think it does this well enough, because basically what Flock says is actually fascinating.
Yeah,
Like what he's saying is actually brilliant, but then they play it out as he's going on a bit, and like Archer has to be like, hey,
he's off on a
stop. Yeah, that's
tangent.
fine. Yeah, that's it. He's going off a bit, but it doesn't last long enough. But I guess for
Yeah,
the episode length, you can't really do it, like properly show it. But I do love, I fucking love Phlox. I love Phlox. I love Hoshi. I love Archer. I love Trip. I love T'Pol. It's one of these things, after us watching Voyager so much and me realizing that I don't actually care about a lot of the characters. And then Enterprise, where I'm just like going, I really like the cast. Like this, it's only Reed where they don't really know what to do with Reed. Well, no, it's not. It's not even that. It's not like the Neelix problem with Malcolm Reed. The Neelix problem is, hey, we've made this character and we don't know what to do with them. With Malcolm Reed, they're like, we've made a character and he's just unlikable. Like
we've made a
there's,
character that doesn't really fit in a
we
way
made,
because he's more of a
he doesn't
soldier.
do anything. Like he's
Yeah,
literally just like, does he have any hobbies? No. Does he have any family relationships? No. Does he have any like sort of relationships to the other crew members? No. Does he have anything that makes him smile? No. And you're
no.
sitting there being like, why would you make a character like this? And it's very weird. And it's not the way he's acted at all. I think he's acted fairly well. It's just the idea of they just have this character who's just would be an NPC in a video game,
He's quite
like
two
he just,
dimensional in an ensemble where
yeah.
they are fully fleshed out over 4 years. Reed is possibly the only character that barely gets fleshed out. Maybe in season 3 when he had a bit of argy-bargy with the Makos, but that's it.
Yeah,
Or gets into
but
trouble
that's it.
with Trip on Riser.
And it felt like sort of it felt like he felt like the, oh, what's his name? Harry Kim of the show, where
Yeah,
the only times he's relevant is when he's the with someone else. Like in this
yeah.
episode, he's with Mayweather or he's with Trip in that one. And it just feels like it's like you could have done so much more with Malcolm Reed. I feel in it. But then you have characters like sort of Mayweather and Hoshi, where you're like, you could have done a fuck ton loads with these, and then I don't think they did. But yeah.
The I mean, I have you've probably got notes that you want to discuss about this episode. I do have one note. This
Hmm.
was nominated for an Emmy Award for
Really?
outstanding visual effects. It lost, but it lost to Broken Bow, the pilot episode. So they still won an Emmy.
What?
This was second
They lost
place.
against themselves.
Yeah, they lost against themselves. Broken Bow won the Emmy for outstanding visual
Hmm.
effects, which in 2002. Um,
I will
but
say actually, because the comet looks amazing, and then when the ice is shattering, like cracking later on in the episode, that does look great as
this
well, you know?
this was at a time because Enterprise was fully CGI in terms of the exterior shots. Doug Drexler, I love love drug. I love
Drug, I
drugs.
love drugs.
I love Doug. He lovey alert. I'm not ashamed. He was. I have been friends with Doug for 12 years.
Hmm.
12 years? No, 14 years. Just randomly added him on Facebook because I thought I'm a ballsy twat. Added him, and he's a lovely, lovely, lovely human being. He designed the NX-01.
Hmm.
And when I mean design, the one thing I love about Doug Drexler is when he designs something, he designs it to the bolt. So the
Hmm.
visual file for Enterprise is so big that you could literally zoom in and see writing on the airlock.
Bloody
on
hell.
the side of the saucer. And he did this. This was the way Doug works. He did this with Battlestar Galactica. So the reimagined
Mm.
Galactica, again, you can zoom in and see like numbers and everything like that on the doors. Um, thankfully, thankfully, he was on Picard season 2 and 3, and wonderfully, he is currently working on the Orville season 4, which has been greenlit by Disney.
Whoa, I
So
didn't even realize that it had been greenlit.
it's been Trekking Up North exclusive. Uh, no, it was publicised a few weeks ago, but he was supposed to be at STLV because I was really excited to meet him.
Mm.
However, he had to turn down because they greenlit the Orville, and they were like, "Get your ass to Fox Studios because we need you to be back on set." But yeah, so the level of CGI design, they took everything that they'd learned from DS9 and Voyager and sort of just took it up a notch. And this was at a period where visual effects in science fiction was really, really starting to come into fruition. Because, like I said, you had Star Trek Enterprise, you had Firefly,
Mm. Yeah.
and then you had Battlestar Galactica, and then obviously it's been advanced all the way through. But the visual effects, I don't think they've dated poorly. You can tell that they're not modern day standards, but for the time,
I think they look great. Like
they look
honestly,
they look
the
absolutely
comet
fantastic.
the comet looked great, and the when the ice was cracking, I couldn't tell how it was
Yeah,
done. I was like, maybe this is rotoscoped, like and then I was like,
yeah,
no, it's not going to be rotoscoped. It's going to be like CG, but it looked great,
yeah. So
and
for a TV
and this
show,
is 20 years ago.
yeah, for a TV show to do this,
Yeah, it's not like Rings of Power where next year we're going to be like, this is shit. This CG is terrible.
how many
That's how it's
billions of
feeling.
pound? How many billions of pound,
Where
Amazon?
did the money go, man? I literally, sorry, not going to go on a rant about Rings of Power, but I finished it and I was like, I was very disappointed by that. But it's more the fact of like, I don't know where the money went. I can't
Yeah.
see whether you could have told that story with a shoestring
Star
budget, you
Trek
know?
Star Trek has proven time and time again you don't need millions and millions and millions of pounds to tell a good story, or b produce fantastic visual effects.
Mm, exactly.
Any further notes on Breaking the Ice?
Not sure. Hold on, blah, blah,
I will say,
blah.
whilst he checks for the notes,
Hmm.
if you do enjoy Breaking the Ice, watch the next episode in Enterprise Civilization, because that is Star Trek at probably its very best, exploring strange new worlds. And we get to
Hmm.
see the crew of the Enterprise really explore a alien civilization in a way that we've never seen it before. And I really enjoyed it. When this first came out in 2001, this was one of my favourite episodes of Enterprise at the time. But any notes?
No, no, nothing else. I think the only,
Nothing at all.
the yeah, the only thing is me having a bit of a rant about fucking like obviously the school message scene. Miss Malvin's fourth grade class at Worley Elementary School, Kenmare Island, and you just like they had to bring the Irish into it again, didn't they? It's like
But
throughout
they
all of
didn't
it, they're
slag
like,
them
let's
off.
put let's put baseball in, let's put the Irish in, let's put like sort of what's it called, jazz into it, and you're like, really?
But they didn't slag off the Irish. They didn't typecast the Irish.
Okay,
Um,
so at least there was like one failure there. But no,
but
but I just want to say like this, I loved this episode. Like genuinely, this is what Enterprise is.
yeah,
This is what the show should have been. This is the perfect thing. Like T'Pol is so perfect throughout it. Trip is so perfect throughout it. It is, yeah. You know how I keep saying if I wanted to get someone into DS9, I would show them Duet
yeah,
or In the Pale Moonlight. Uh, if I wanted to get someone into Enterprise, I would show them this. This
fan.
is my this is what the show is about.
What a fantastic way to end our review of Breaking the Ice. Now, you would expect the double wheel of episodes to appear now, but no, because for the rest of 2024, as I alluded to earlier, we are reviewing season 5 of Star Trek Lower Decks. I am very sad that it is ending, and I don't want it to end. I want there to be a movie or something.
I'm I still don't get it. I don't get why it's
Paramount?
ending. Like it's just Paramount just being like, "Hey, what's money? Do we want that?" No, of course not. Like
No.
it's genuinely, "Hey, let's make a show about a high school." And you're like, "Nobody wants that. Give us
So
more lower decks." But
as of next week, myself and Science Officer Synoiz will be hopping on to the U.S.S. Cerritos to review the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks. So no Dabba Wheel for the rest of 2024, unless we do it on the Christmas special. Did I reveal there's a Christmas special? Maybe. Before the
good
adequate
Lord,
goes in.
how naughty of you.
How
You're so
naughty.
naughty. You're
Before the
so
adequate
naughty, Mrs. Goodwill.
Before the adequate goes into dry dock and has a complete computer overhaul because the graphics are looking a little bit tired and they need a bit of a joie de vivre,
Zhuzh.
a zhuzh, little bit of a zhuzh, little bit of a fluff.
Little eau de toilette.
Eau de toilette, yes, le lynx, Africa. But no, that has been our review of Star Trek Enterprise's episode Breaking the Ice. I would firstly like to thank my wonderful Geesian, Science Officer Synoiz, for being here this week, as always, to review this episode. I would like to thank everybody in the live chat for sticking with us. You are the real troopers in this. Joe from Captain's Quadrant. Is this the one where they find the first contact Borg? No, that's season 2. Peaches.
That's what I thought, though. I thought as
Yeah,
I thought
you
as
did.
soon as I heard it on the Dabba wheel, I was like, "Oh no, it's not." You know.
Peaches, Sarah, Beth, Christopher, Chris, everyone in the chat, thank you so much. Everyone who is watching this back recorded, thank you so much for taking the time to watch our review. If you liked this, click that like button. And if you are not a subscriber to Nerdy Up North, hit that subscribe button as well. Everything that Nerdy Up North does can be found in the links to the description. Captain Goodwill, that's me. I am also on the search for Trek. Videos to YouTube coming soon, but I am squirreling away on the social medias doing an on this star date. God help me, I don't know why. But everything, search for Trek, Clone Star Podcast, Captain's Quadrant, shout out to Joe. Love you, Joe. Everything is down there. The Velvet Snatch, everything is down there. Adam Ashbridge, who did the music, who did the wonderful cover of Star Trek Voyager for this show. Links are in the description below. Science Officer Synoiz, as well as the Nerdy Up North quiz, which is going on the 26th of October.
It is next Saturday. Next Saturday.
Anything else you would like to promote?
No, if you are in Newcastle, I will be performing as Velcro Snatch as a part of like Halloween at Oscars, which is the 27th, Sunday the 27th. I think it starts at 7 p.m. at Oscars, which is above the Yard in Newcastle. Small little venue, but it's wonderful and cozy, and it should be a wonderful little Halloween party for everyone if you want to turn up for that. But please come to the quiz because it's going to be special. We're going to have an artwork auction. We're going to have our standard raffle. We're going to have a teapot auction for you, Goodwill. So keep your pennies safe, Zoe. And yep, and the usual thing. And obviously, we will have the wonderful guest host, Sammy from Monsters Up North, which should be very exciting. And we're raising money for the Motor Neurone Disease Association. I got that right. MND Association. Yeah, so it should be great.
One final shout out. It is Father's birthday on Sunday. So happy birthday, Father.
Daddy's birthday.
May your birthday,
Happy birthday, Daddy.
May your birthday be uneventful and miserable because we Goodwills do not celebrate one's birthday. So, but huge. My mother has actually texted me. Hang on.
Is your mum actually listening? Happy
Shout out.
birthday, Daddy.
What has she said? What has she said? What has she said? Great show. Shout out for Dad's birthday. LOL. Oh, I've already done it.
Yeah, that's it.
But happy birthday, Father, for this Sunday, the 20th of October. Father!
Father!
But until next week. Next week will be recorded, I believe.
Yes, I literally.
Yes,
it's not even a gig next week. It's literally a mate's birthday. So like, we will not be live next Friday. So we'll have to record it on the Wednesday or the Thursday.
The first episode.
No, I'm busy on the Wednesday.
Well,
Wednesday, we will work it out.
Whenever I can get the exclusive thing.
Shit, yeah.
But It will be sometime next week. It might be Friday. It might be Saturday. We don't know. We
Yeah.
are flexible. We are bendable. We are the shatterproof ruler of Star Trek.
We're
So
highly pliable.
until the next time we see you, Treks and Trekkers, I have been Captain Goodwill. He has been Science Officer Synoiz. And as ever, live long and prosper, stay safe, look after each other. And as we always end, trekking up north. Miles?
Why is it always the fucking Irish?
Miles?
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 Come out, Miles.
Oh,
We know
top
you're
of the morning
Irish.
to you. Miles.